Hi class. So in this video, I am going to talk about how you find change over time in readings. So we practiced this quite a bit with videos, and now I want to move on to how you find change over time in a reading about history. Okay. So I'm going to give you some tips, some tricks that you can use to try to find change over time in a reading. And it really all depends on how you read the text. So the first thing you're going to want to do is look for different eras or different periods of time in a text. This is the first thing you've got to do. If you want to compare two periods of time to find changes over time, you got to find the two different eras or periods of time that we're thinking about in a reading, okay? And then you've got to read the whole thing. If you're going to find different eras, if you're going to find different periods of time, it is super important that you read the whole text, okay? After you've read the whole text, you've found your different eras, your different periods of time, then you can compare them. Look for differences between one era and the next era that you found, okay? So after you've found your two eras, you've read the whole thing, you're going to look for differences between them. Things that may have changed over that time, things that might be different from one period of time to the next period of time, okay? You also need to, or we need to start thinking about looking for significant changes. Okay, so it's not just enough to say that there were differences. There's always going to be differences from one era to the next. We also want to start thinking about what is the most important changes, or what are the most important changes from one period of time to the next period of time. And a significant change is a change that relates to the main idea of the reading. So first, you kind of need to find that main idea of the reading. So you've read the whole thing, you've figured out what it's about, what it's mainly about, the main idea of the reading. And then you're going to look for changes and differences that relate to that main idea. So you want the really important information here, okay? And that's what we mean when we say significant changes. And that's really what we're looking for with standard 3, okay? So I want to give you an example of what this would look like. So we're going to use our same reading guide that we've been using with the videos, only now we're going to apply it to a reading. And I'm going to use this reading about early civilization in the Indus Valley. We are not going to use the whole thing for this example because it would take too long. But you should know that we're talking about two ancient cities. So we are looking at Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, okay? And these are two cities that were found in what is now Pakistan. Okay, so we're going to look just at a small section of that here. We're going to start here in this section that says the fall of Harappan culture. So I'm going to read this portion of the text to you, and then we will complete the reading guide over here. So these two cities were impressively made. The remains of their walls give us clues about the culture of the Indus Valley. Clay figurines of goddesses, for example, are proof that religion was important. Toys and games show that even in 3000 BC, kids like to play. Pottery, textiles, and beads are evidence of their skilled craftsmanship and thriving trade. It was this appreciation for craftsmanship and trade that allowed the Harappan culture to spread widely and grow. Each time goods were traded or neighbors entered the gates of the city to barter, their ideas were spread. Eventually, though, around 1900 BC, this group came to an end. The group unity collapsed. Soon, the civilization split up into smaller cultures. Trade, writing, and seals all but disappeared. What devoured the Indus Valley? Many believe that the Harappan civilization declined after they were invaded by Aryan people from the north. This theory seems logical. The Aryans came to power in the Ganges Valley shortly after the death of the Indus Valley civilization. However, there's little evidence of any type of invasion. Many historians believe that nature brought the Indus Valley to an end. They say that changing river patterns disrupted the farming and trading systems and led to devastating flood. The smaller details of the early Indus Valley culture might never be fully known. Still, many pieces of the ancient puzzle have been discovered. The remains of the Indus Valley cities continue to be unearthed and discussed today. With each new artifact, the story of this world becomes clearer and more interesting. Okay, so we've read this portion of the text, and now we need to figure out, okay, what changed over time? So the first thing we need to do is we need to find two different periods of time, two different eras. Well, so right here at the start of the reading, we're talking about 3000 BCE. Okay, so we know this is happening around 3000. And we know that this is an era where the Harappan culture, there's a lot of trade, there's a lot of trade goods, pottery, textiles, beads, toys, all kinds of fun stuff, okay? But by the end of this section, we're in 1900 BC, and we are seeing that there is a change in the civilization, right? The group unity collapses, the civilization splits up, trade, writing, and seals disappear. So something happens, right? There's a significant change where the civilization that was once doing really well starts to decline. All right, well, we found our first change, right? So we would say something like the Harappan culture declined. So that's the change, okay? And we'll just leave it at that, okay? Now, in this sheet, it also asks you to look for causes for that. So we know the Harappan culture declined. We also, the reading gives us some possible causes down here. So they may have been invaded by the Aryans, right? So many people believe that the Harappan civilization declined after they were invaded by Aryan people from the north, or due to flooding. And the flooding, and we should put this in complete sentences. So we should say, or they may have declined due to flooding. Oh, can't spell, guys. All right. And we know that from here, many historians believe that nature brought the Indus Valley to an end. They say that changing river patterns disrupted the farming and trading systems and led to devastating floods. Okay. So maybe it was flooding, maybe it was invasion by the Aryans, but either way, this change happened. The Harappan culture declined. So, what are some other significant changes? Well, we know that the Harappan culture spread at one point, because the reading tells us that one directly, right? The Harappan culture spread widely and grow, allowed the Harappan culture to spread widely and grow. We know that means they started out pretty small, right? Because they had to grow, and then they got bigger. So the Harappan culture spread and grew. Okay. All right. Well, now let's take a look at what caused that. Well, it looks like it was caused by trade. Each time goods were traded or neighbors entered the gates of their city, their ideas were spread. So we would say ideas spread by trade. Okay. So that's a clear cause and effect relationship. Okay. So this excerpt's kind of short, so I don't know that I really even have 3 changes for you for this kind of short section. Normally, you'd be working with a little bit longer reading. But I do also want to model what it would look like to find something that stayed the same. Now, this is a little bit harder with this one because the civilization ended. They stopped existing, right? But there are some things that do stay the same, right? So, for example, the Aryans came to power in the Ganges Valley shortly after the death of the Indus Valley civilization. So, what's happening there? Civilization still exists, right? So, we would say something like civilization still exists in the Indus Valley because the Aryans took over, right? Great. So we have one thing at least that stayed the same. Civilization, people still living there. Okay. The other thing that we might say is that, well, the artifacts are still around and were found by archaeologists. So we see that kind of at the very end there. The remains of the Indus Valley cities continue to be unearthed and discussed today, right? So one thing that still exists are their things, their stuff. And that's something that we could say has kind of stayed the same, right? Even though the people are gone, the objects, the artifacts are still around. And then these tell us the story of the Harappan culture. All right, that little pop-up guy tells me that I'm running out of time. So we will wrap it up there. This is just an example of how you would complete this sheet based off of a reading. And we are going to practice that. You guys are going to practice that here in class in just a minute. All right. Thank you for watching, guys.